So, Graham Martin with yet another episode of Business Wizards. Sujan Shah, good to see you. We're here today in North London with Sujan Shah, who's the founder and managing director of the Carrier Bag Shop. I think it's fair to say that you are the largest online wholesaler of carrier bags and associated accessories in the UK, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I'm kind of curious because I'm used to interviewing people that are in probably the kind of roles, the industries that people would think of would be more likely to generate that kind of turnover. How did you get into carrier bags and how did you end up having a business with a £3 million turnover?
It's one of those stories that we get asked about quite a lot. How did you end up in carrier bags? And it's one of those things that we just fell into. In 2003 and 4, my dad had a factory manufacturing brown paper bags, the greengrocer style paper bags. Yep. Once I graduated from university, I worked for him for about 2 years. One of the things that interested me at the time was the internet. And this is in the period after the first .com bubble burst. The internet was back up on the rise. Through a series of circumstances, I met a guy who made websites. And I said, look, I haven't got any money, but if you can make me a website for free, we can try and sell a few packaging products on the web. And at the time, in late 2005, early 2006, we had about 40 products on the web. There was 2 of us running the business, my partner Neil and I. And we sort of started taking orders online. My dad decided to close down the factory. Manufacturing in the UK was dying a death, and the imports were coming in from Europe and the Far East. So I took the website and I said, well, it's got potential to become a business of its own. So Neil and I just took it from there, and every time we got a phone call asking for a product that we weren't selling, we used to say, yeah, we can find it, found it, sourced it, sold it.
So you're online, but also on the phone as well, yeah?
Yeah, we used to get a lot of phone inquiries, and we used to people used to ask us to print their packaging for them as well. And every time we got asked about a new product, we just found it and sold it, found it and sold it. A lot of eventually we got up to sort of 100 products, and we probably only stocked less than half of them, but we had suppliers within a sort of 10-mile radius. So at 2 o'clock every day we'd go around and pick up all the stuff we'd sold and ship it, and eventually cash flow improved. We started stocking more lines and found better suppliers and started importing to get better pricing, and it just snowballed really.
So today we've got about 2,000 square feet of office space, and how much warehouse space have you got?
Just over 9,000 square foot of warehouse as well.
So how much space did you have in those early days?
In the first year we had about 1,000 square foot of warehouse. Right. After a year we moved onto the location where we are with 3,000 square foot. Yep. And approximately every year we've had to add on another 3,000 square foot. The year after, another 3,000 square foot. And then about 4 months ago we took on 2,000 square foot of office as well. And
you mentioned your business partner.
Yep.
So did you go out and find him? How did that relationship develop? What was his core skills? Why did you end up working together?
I've known Neil since we were 3.
Okay.
So we went to nursery school together. So
a lot of history.
Yeah, we've been friends for 20-something years before we started working together. And it was a case of circumstance. He was in a dead-end job at the time, telesales and photocopiers, but he had far more to offer than that. And I persuaded him to quit that, move home, take a pay cut, so we can start selling stuff on the internet. And we did, and it's just developed from there.
So that was probably your biggest sell ever, getting him to come on board for a reduced salary and so forth. Yeah.
Exactly.
And what was it about Neil that, apart from the fact that you knew him since you were 3, why did you decide that he was the guy to work with? Because I guess you knew a lot of other people that you could have chosen to become your partner.
I guess we both had the same ambitions and goals, and we share the same values. So those are I guess as a global question, who would you work with, or who would you have as a business partner, or why does the relationship work? We share the same end goal for the business. When you have relationships where 2 people want 2 different things, that's when you can have sometimes issues. And we have the same values.
And do you think that's very important?
Without that, you can't have.
Do you ever disagree with Neil, or is it?
Yes.
So it's a bit like a marriage. It's give and take. And
we've had arguments before, but the good thing is, and I know, and he knows, we can have a blazing argument, agree to disagree, and as soon as it's over, and that's it. We'll get on. 2 minutes later, we can move on to the next thing. So there's no sort of emotional.
So I'm interested. You've been going for 6 years. You're doing £3 million turnover.
Yep.
what would you do differently if you were going to go back and start again, hindsight in mind, what would you do differently?
Ooh. There are a number of things that we probably made mistakes as we're going along, but I wouldn't necessarily go back and do anything differently, because I think you learn from your mistakes, and if we hadn't made those mistakes, we'd be very different now. But I definitely think we've lost some of our competitive edge in terms of speed of change, and so I would definitely look at that. And when we started the business, neither of us had any business background, business education, which we have developed later on.
You've got a degree, haven't you? What's your degree in? Is it a business process or your finance?
The title was Modern Languages and European Studies with French and Russian.
Okay.
So I studied French and Russian language.
Yeah.
And there was also politics, culture.
And has that degree helped you in your business life, do you think?
Not specifically in terms of what I learned, but the skill set.
So teaching you to think and to reason.
Reporting, research, communication skills, definitely.
So do you think education's important postgraduate for somebody that's getting into business? And if so, what kind of education? Are you talking
about further education with university?
Well, not necessarily. You know, education broadly can be attending a course, reading a book, or just
ongoing
education
is vital.
Yeah.
And personal development for staff is vital. I think I was reading it only 3 months ago. Something in the Harvard Business Review about what motivates employees, and from a boss's perspective, people always think it's money or a pat on the back. So if you're praising your staff, they'll be happy, or if you're giving them a pay rise, they'll be happy. But when they interviewed staff, the biggest motivating factor was a role where they felt they were getting development. Development was the key word.
Training is really important.
So if staff feel they're stagnant, they lose motivation and they lose enjoyment.
Particularly with the younger demographic, you know, you look at Generation Y.
Attention spans are a lot lower.
And for them, they want to be inspired, they want to be motivated,
Definitely.
and education in the broader sense is really important. They want the training
I would say
and the variety. What would you say has been the most important thing that you have done, though? Maybe not so much your biggest success, but what you'd say has been key, has been fundamental to your business success and the evolution of the company?
In the last 18 months, in the early days, we were very sort of hand to mouth and reactive to growth. If the warehouse was full, we'd find more warehousing space. If the phones were ringing and we couldn't pick them all up, we'd get more staff, and so on and so on. So we were very, very reactive to sort of what our needs were. And in the last 18 months, we've sort of said, hang on, this can't go on. There's no sort of long-term structured plan. So both Neil and myself did some study. We looked at business theory, strategies. We got external help from accountants and what have you to look at what's the shape of the business in 3, 5 and 10 years. And whatever we do now has to be with a view to what's going to happen in 3, 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So whenever we look at anything now, it's long term rather than reactive. We like to think we're proactive.
So it's about planning. Then you'd say planning is a key fundamental.
It's a short term. I mean, and what we've probably suffered in the short term financially. We're probably putting a lot of expense into foundations, which will have more benefits in the long term.
And if we're looking at technology. You know, I always ask people when I'm interviewing, how has technology affected your business over the last couple of years? But because you're in a web-based technology business, I suppose it's been massive, the changes, the evolution, Web 2. What do you see the future being as well from a technological point of view for your company?
Well, tech has been key for everything, and tech is also front end with the website, but the back end system. So how orders are processed, SOP, making everything as streamlined as possible has been really important, and we haven't yet got the magic formula. When we've got the magic formula, I'll phone you. But it's one of those. We want if you want to scale a business to be as big as possible, it's about making everything follow a system.
Yeah.
So if a lead comes in at one end, it's as easy as possible to get it out the other end as a sale. With as little involvement from staff, as little complications, and that's what we need to do. That's what technology will help us do. Make everything a system that's just almost procedure. Now, the downside to that is that you lose some of the creativity in the business. But 80% of what we do is straightforward, sort of very standard products, and 20% is the bespoke, unique stuff.
Yeah.
That 80% needs to be as efficient as possible, and that will all come through systems and technology.
So it's also getting the right people to deliver those systems, and making sure, I guess, that the people that you recruit are able to deal with the future again.
I mean, IT projects and IT planning are ridiculously difficult, and you look at the government. I mean, they're the prime example of people that screw up IT systems. Look at 13 billion on the NHS project, and it can't even go live and can't even be delivered.
Doesn't work, does it?
Just as relevant. That's on a larger scale. It's just as relevant in a small business.
In the day of celebrity, which we are now, celebrity business people, a lot of people that I'm interviewing are saying that they are researching, they're looking for mentors, they're looking for inspiration. Who are you inspired by? What have you read? Who do you perhaps look up to in a general sense? Where do you get support from?
I think as there are a phenomenal amount of resources available. I mean, I know you read a lot and I read a lot, and we share a lot of the stuff we read. There are a lot of very successful business people that have written a lot of books. So most recently, I suppose, Tony Hsieh and the Zappos culture has really had a big influence on how we want to develop our culture. It's all about having the best working environment to achieve the best results.
Yeah.
I'm part of an ACE group, so
ACE, what does that mean?
Academy of Chief Executives.
Okay.
So it's about surrounding yourself with people of a similar level who have experience. A lot of the issues that we come across on a day-to-day, other people have those same issues. So it's sharing knowledge.
Is that like a mastermind group?
Yeah, I would say so. We meet once a month and we
stuff.
share ideas and issues and education. We have speakers and learning and stuff like that. In terms of fundamental books, I mean, if you go on any management course, Good to Great, I think, comes out on every course. Reading that was really inspirational. And the other book that I would say everybody should read is Tribal Leadership, Dave Logan, and that's all about managing people and developing culture.
So ongoing education, self-education, self-development, not just thinking, right, I've got a business, I'm going to study how to become better at sales or better at process. It's a broader education that you'd advocate, yeah?
Yeah, I would say so, but because, this business is nothing like what I want it to be. If you ask me what the vision is, if you're talking about storage distribution, all the different countries we could be in and all what we could achieve,
it's never finished, is it?
No way near. We're not even 5% of the way we
Scratch
want
the
to be.
surface.
And to get to where we want to be, I don't have the knowledge yet to get us there, so I have to get it from somewhere.
Okay, get it. If there's one piece of advice that you pass on to our viewers, somebody that's looking to go into business on their own for the first time, maybe grow their business, they're considering their options, what would you pass on?
Going into business for me has never been a choice. In that I've never sat down and said, should I do it, shouldn't I do it? It's always got to happen. I get so excited and passionate about it. I think the thing that holds a lot of people back is they think it's risky. Starting your own business is risky. I've never thought of any project or business as a risk. You have good ideas and you have bad ideas. If you have an idea, you weigh up the pros and cons. If there are more pros than cons, it's a good idea and you should do it. If there are more cons than pros, it's a bad idea and you shouldn't do it. And if it is a good idea and it fails, it wasn't because it was risky, it was poor execution. So I just look at everything as either a good idea or a bad idea. If it's a good idea, we do it. And if it doesn't work, it wasn't because it actually was a bad idea, it was bad execution. And that's the way I think people should look at anything.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And be ready to work hard.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a myth about working for yourself is a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job. I've spoken to you on many occasions. You've been working weekends. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, as I've gotten older and the business has developed, I think I've learned to balance life a bit better. But in the early days, you've got to work every hour that there is.
And you recently got married, so I guess
coming up to a year.
You've got some family commitments, and you can't be spending all hours in the office, can you?
Yes, that does have an impact on balancing your life. I'm lucky my wife appreciates what we're trying to achieve. I mean, I'm getting older, but I'd still think that by the time I'm 35, 38, I can take it a bit easier.
Maybe we'll come back in
Right.
5 years' time and we'll find out. So,
Maybe.
well, look, Sujan, that's great. You know, I
Thank
really
you.
do think you are a genuine business wizard. I hope you enjoyed this interview. I found out a lot of new things. So we wish you good luck for the future.
Thank you.
And let's come back in 5 years and find out whether you are spending less time in the
If
business.
I'm still here.
If you're still here. Yeah. Anyway, good luck to you. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.